Steve in Rochester, New York. Steve, you want to take me to task?
Yeah, Tom, I think there's a couple of things that you just said during this last half hour. For instance, the church was going to expel Merton for what he was saying.
I never said that.
A long time ago, I read this book, The Seven-Story Mountain, was impressed like I imagine you were.
Yeah.
But, no way did the church ever think of expelling him.
No, they didn't. But no, what I said was, or what I meant to say, I'm not sure exactly what I said, but what I meant to say was that hundreds of years ago, that kind of stuff, for a Catholic scholar to be publishing to a lay audience things that sing the praises of Buddhism. If you read Merton's book, The Little Flowers of Zen or something like that, that would have been considered blasphemy, or it would have been considered at least enough to get him kicked out of being a priest 200, 300, 400 years ago. The church has come a long way in terms of tolerance, and Dorothy Day was considered by many in the church a heretic in her day, at least what little I know of her. But and I know that Thomas Merton was not an altogether universally loved figure in the Catholic Church. The Opus Dei contingent, the hard right contingent, did not like him. But no, I did. If I said that the church had any intention of, or even a thought of, kicking out Thomas Merton, then I stand corrected, Steve. I did not mean to say that. I don't think I said it. But if you heard it, my apologies.
Yeah, okay. Well, the next thing is, the way you're always lambasting Republicans.
Yeah.
I'm a Republican, okay?
Why?
And, I think one of the things...
Why are you a Republican, Steve?
Well, I'll answer that in a few minutes, okay? I grew up in a heavy Democratic family, okay? James Michael Curley in Boston, and Roosevelt and all that stuff. My father and family were heavily involved in Democratic politics. I always claimed I got liberated, okay? Now, let me tell you in a number of reasons why. The Pope is really speaking tolerance. That's what he's really doing, that we have to be able to live together and take care of it. Now, the way, Joe McCarthy had an awful way of doing things, of proving things. And, the idea that Boehner is a drunk and that he's crying because he's a drunk and because of what the Pope is saying, Tom, you're using the same tactics.
Steve, number one, no, I don't think I'm Joe McCarthy. Number two, I encourage you, Steve, to pick up a copy of Bob Ney's book, Sideswiped. Bob Ney was a Republican member of Congress for years. He knew John Boehner personally and knew him well, and he documents Boehner's drinking in that book in excruciating detail, and it's a really, really scary thing. It's an open secret in this town that Boehner is a high-functioning alcoholic, and that he shows up drunk a lot. And so, making a joke about it or even speculating about it, I don't think is out of bounds. I mean, Joe McCarthy was going after people who were not supporters of the Soviet Union, who weren't trying to bring down the United States, who simply had, in some cases, liberal points of view. In some cases, not even that. He was just grandstanding. I don't think that there's any comparison. You haven't told me yet, though, Steve, why you are a Republican. You said we should be tolerant of each other. Okay. Intolerance is what the Republican Party is preaching right now.
I got liberated. Okay, you ready for me?
I'm listening.
Okay. I got liberated when I realized that the more you give people, and I grew up on welfare in a heavy Democratic area, and I realized the more you give people, the more they expect it. Now, the way you got to help them, in the way my dad and a lot of good Democrats like John McCormick and people like him advocated was, sure, you got to help the poor. There's no doubt about that. But for God's sakes, teach them how to fish. Don't just keep giving them fish. You got to have an attitude of doing that.
Then why do Republicans want to defund schools? Why do they want to defund public education? Why do they want to make it harder and harder for people to go to college? I mean, if you want to teach people how to fish, it seems like the Democratic Party is all about that, and the Republican Party is the opposite.
No, it's not, Tom. by a long shot. Well, I'm looking at the TV. I don't know whether you're ready for me.
I'm listening. No, don't look at the TV. There's a delay. There's about a 30-second delay. So, whatever you see on TV is...
So here's,
just talk to me.
I honestly think guys, like you're always saying about the fabulously wealthy. Well, when Andrew Carnegie died, he had $199 billion. He was 4 times richer than Gates. And he gave away about $150 billion to build libraries to help the people. Right. Just because he gets filthy rich doesn't mean that he's a bad man.
Well, actually, if you look at Andrew Carnegie's...
Now, wait a minute, let me finish. Carnegie would most likely build a tunnel to bring water from the Great Lakes to areas of Texas and Arizona. Now,
Steve, have you ever read a biography of Andrew Carnegie or of any of the robber barons of that era?
Oh, Tom,
these were ruthless men who crushed the competition, who when their employees tried to unionize, had them killed in some cases. I can't say that specifically about Carnegie, but I can certainly say it about Rockefeller. And
you can't say it about Carnegie because he was in Scotland when all that happened. And last but not least, Tom, I don't want to tie up everything. All right? You were talking about the bees in the lawsuit, correct?
Okay.
The bees in the lawsuit, right?
The bees.
Well, it's kind of funny. Right. The scientists in the FDA say it's
in the news.
But some lawyer says it's no.
Right.
And, that's kind of crazy. I appreciate the fact that you're allowing me to talk. But, Tom, you got to be a lot more tolerant. A lot more tolerant.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Steve, thank you for the advice. Nice to hear from you. I don't know what to say. I think that Steve probably, and I don't even want to speak to Steve because he's not here on the phone anymore to defend himself. But, my dad lived and died a Republican. But there is no doubt in my mind that if he were to look at today's Republican Party, he would be sickened by it. The Republican Party of Dwight Eisenhower, the Republican Party of Barry Goldwater, hell, the Republican Party of Richard Nixon no longer exists. It has become a group of special interests pandering to low-information voters on a couple of issues that the special interests don't care about, so that the financial special interests can get very, very rich. That's the Republican Party today.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And I don't think it's intolerant to say it. I agree with Harry Truman. They say I'm giving them hell, but I'm just telling the truth, and they think it's hell. We'll be back.